Hi, everyone. Good morning. We'll wait just for a few minutes to wait for the rest of the people to join us. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us in today's webinar, hosted by Applaudo in a collaboration with Amazon Web Services. My name is Michelle Fariñas, Communications and Corporate Affairs Specialist at Applaudo, and I'll be your host today. As AI adoption continues to accelerate, many organizations face the same challenge. How do we move from successful proof of concept to secure, scalable AI solutions that deliver real business value? Well, that's exactly what this session will be about. Over the next hour, our speakers will share practical strategies and real world insights to help businesses and technology leaders take AI initiatives from POC to production. So if you have any questions throughout this session, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll be happy to address them during our Q&A section. To guide us through today's conversation, we are joined by three experts from AWS and Applaudo. First, I'd like to welcome Fiona Roberts. Fiona is a solutions architect at AWS. She works with organizations to design secure, cloud-native, and AI-powered solutions, helping customers successfully adopt and scale AI on AWS. Next, we will welcome Joe Battle, also a solutions architect at AWS. Joe specializes in generative AI, AI agents, cloud modernization, and helping organizations bring AI workloads into production. And last but not least, let's welcome Carlos Peña. Carlos is a Vice President of Solutions Architecture here at Applaudo, and he helps organizations design scalable technology solutions and accelerate their digital and AI transformation journeys. Thank you all for being here today. With that, I'll hand it over information journeys. And thank you all for being here today. Thank you. With that, I'll hand it over information journeys. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'll hand it over
A very good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Fiona Roberts, and I'm the solutions
A
architect
very
at
good
Amazon Web
morning,
Services.
everyone.
And thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for joining us today. My name is my name is Fiona Roberts, and I'm a solutions architect at Amazon Web Services, and I'm joined by my colleague Joe Battle, also a solutions architect. We are really excited to be here and with our partner Applaudo for this session. Well, the title says it all: from AI strategy to AI agents, a leader's playbook from POC to production. If you're here, you've probably experienced or heard about the challenge of getting AI out of the lab and into the real production. Maybe you run a successful POC concept, but scaling it up felt like a different problem entirely. And that's exactly why we are here to address that today. This session is structured as a practical playbook, and we have Joe who's going to start by walking you through the strategic foundation, and then I'll take over the operational side. And after that, we'll have Carlos from Applaudo who will share how they help organizations like yours to execute on this and get to production in partnership with AWS. Next slide, please. Well, the agenda here's a roadmap for this session. We'll start with a problem most organizations are facing with AI. Let's walk through a 6-step strategic playbook, cover how AWS supports you at each step, and then hand off to Carlos from Applaudo. And we'll leave questions at the end. I'm now going to pass it on to Joe. The previous slide, please.
Isn't how do we use AI? It's what do we change about how we operate? Next slide, please. All right, here's the contrast. Yesterday's playbook. You find a cool AI capability, you look for somewhere to apply it. You automate a step in an existing process, and you declare victory. Each team does this independently. Marketing may pick up a chatbot, sales may use some stuff with generative AI, ops may use an AI coding agent, but nobody's talking to each other. The result is you have scattered POCs with no compounding value. I see this a lot with companies that have what seem to be like a good idea, but they don't have a comprehensive strategy. They end up with shadow AI using and duplicating resources, and again, not finding that compounding value. With today's playbook, we flip it. We start with the business strategy. Reimagine your whole process around AI native outcomes and unify the experience, building compounding gains across your organization. And that's what we're seeing the successful organizations do. So here's the framework, 6 steps. I'm going to walk through each one quickly, and every step I'll flag where AWS helps. These aren't sequential gates, they reinforce each other. But if you skip any of them, that's usually where you'll find your project stall. Step 1, where should you actually invest? Not where can we use AI, but where does AI create a defensible competitive advantage aligned to our business strategy? We see a lot of good projects fail to achieve the expected ROI just because it wasn't the right time, because the dependencies weren't built, or even properly identified. There's a framework called Ripple that gives you 6 lenses to pressure test opportunities. You start with R, the rational pause. Stop and ask honestly. Where are faster competitors already serving your customers better than you? Not where would AI be interesting? Where are you already losing ground because you can't move quickly enough? That's your most urgent starting point. Incentive mapping. A free trial may help hit marketing hit their sign up goals, and your customer support easily handles the volume of login help tickets. But since no customer stays past your free trial, the business loses money. That's an incentive conflict AI can dissolve. with analytics tools that help score acquisition candidates on retention probability before you spend the dollar. Perspective divergency. What would an AI native startup do to disrupt you? That's your existential question. Where's your legacy stack hindering your innovation? Process legitimacy. Not could we, but should we? And sometimes the answer is no. Lasting moat. Can you build a proprietary data advantage that competitors can't replicate? And execution velocity. Can you ship this in 2 to 6 months and gain 18 months of lead time? When you score your use cases through these lenses, the top 2 to 3 use cases do become obvious. And AWS and partners help here through our AI roadmap prioritization and AI solutions workshops. We will literally sit down with you and run this scoring session, and you'll come up with an actual document in your hand that lists your priorities and the resources that you'll need to achieve them. Step 2 is where most organizations may get stuck. They may take an existing process and automate individual steps, and that will give you some gains. But the real value comes from reimagining the entire process. So we introduced the break framework, 5 ways to challenge your process assumptions. First is the blind spot scan. Ask why 5 times. If you've done root cause analysis before, or you're familiar with the AWS correction of errors, this is the same methodology. Often you'll discover the bottleneck isn't where you think it is. It's not a technology issue. It's a data or systems or policy or organizational issue masquerading as a technology issue. And once you find that, then you can fix it and get through that blocker. Reframe your constraints. Ask, what if zero latency, zero touch, zero ETL? This forces you to think about what an AI native competitor is doing, not just what an incremental gain could provide. And this is what your competitors are doing, and this is a way to help you think past your legacy stack. Economic dissection. Find your hidden costs. Where is value being destroyed that nobody measures? Assumption audit. Challenge your sacred cows. That approval workflow. Is it regulatory or is it organizational habit? That database that you really don't want to get rid of. Why? Kaizen or happy path. Let AI discover the optimal routes through observation. Deploy your agent, let it observe your actual behavior in production, identify what patterns succeed, and continuously refine. This is the iterate phase of your AI lifecycle, powered by production observability. For a quick example, think about a contact center. The classic process is sequential. You have an interactive phone tree, then you go into a queue, tier 1, escalation, tier 2, resolution. That's 6 handoffs. Reimagine with agentic AI, the system understands the intent immediately, pulls context from your CRM and your knowledge base and your order history in parallel, and resolves or intelligently routes the customer to where they need to be. You're not making the queue faster, you're eliminating the queue. Think about the last time you had to call in to work with customer service and you got hung up on. With AI, you never have to go back through that queue. It knows who you are, it pulls your history and takes you back exactly where you need to be. That's better for you, and it's actually better for your customers. AWS and partners such as Applaudo here support this through workshops such as the AI Implementation Plan AI DLC, which reimagines the software life design, which reimagines the software lifecycle design process into a 3-step inception, constructions, operations process, where AI guides the conversation and writes the code while humans provide the direction and oversight. Step 3. You want to put the human at the center of your process and not center the process around your organizational chart. Think about returning a product today. Your request hits 4 teams: returns, inventory, shipping, and notifications. You drop a product at the counter, they take it to the back, someone has to scan it back into inventory, and then they'll credit you back. Each one has their own system and their own SLA. But your customer doesn't care about that. They just want to return the product. With agentic orchestration, the customer says, I want to return this. And that one statement triggers all 4 actions in parallel. You check the purchase history, verify your policy, process return, update the inventory simultaneously. And better yet, the agent can be proactive. It can suggest a replacement, alert you about approaching warranty decline, or flag a recurring issue with the supplier. Amazon Bedrock agents let you build these orchestrated experiences. Each agent owns a domain, they collaborate in parallel, and the customer gets a unified response without ever knowing how many systems were involved behind the scenes. Now I'll hand this over to Fiona to talk more about human AI collaboration.
Thank you, Joe. So now we've covered where to invest and what to build. Now let's talk about how humans and AI actually work together from day to day. Because this is also where a lot of organizations struggle. They either overtrust AI and remove humans entirely from important decisions, or they undertrust it and add so much human oversight that they lose all the speed benefits. The framework here uses a concept very similar to many leaders: two-way doors and one-way doors. Give to AI the things that are like clearly defined, data rich, reversible, and high volume. These are like your two-way doors. And if the AI makes a wrong call, you can easily correct it. And think of the things like routing customer inquiries, generating first draft reports, or flagging anomalies for review. And keep human judgment for what is actually strategic, relationship sensitive, or irreversible. These are like your one way doors. Once you walk through them, you can't easily go back. Things like entering a new market, working on a vendor relationship, or making a public commitment. The new competency to build in your organization is what we call the AI manager. This isn't just something that writes prompts or tunes models. It's someone who sets clear objectives for AI systems, monitors the performance against those objectives, and also intervenes strategically when the situation changes. It's like an objective setter, not a task definer. And AWS supports this through a Bedrock guardrails, which lets you define boundaries of what AI can and cannot do, and also human in the loop patterns that route high stakes decisions to the right people. And guardrails aren't just about what AI can or cannot do. It can also be about observability and where you build evaluation pipelines and catch failures before they even reach the users. Next slide, please. Step 5 is about your organization structure. And this is something that often gets overlooked in the favor of technology discussions. But the truth is, your organization structure will accelerate or block your AI transformation. Think of the chief AI officer's number one job, which isn't building models, it's distributing AI fluency across the C suite. And if only the tech team understands AI, you'll never get the business alignment that you need to identify in the right use cases. So the model that works here is like a hub and spoke. You have like a central center of excellence that maintains standards, tooling, and best practices. And then you have embedded the AI practitioners in each business unit who understands the domain and can apply these tools to real problems. So between that is what you have the AI incubator ring. And this is like the team that bridges successful pilots to enterprise scale. They take what worked in a POC and figure out how to make it production grade, repeatable, and governable. And the teams that execute best are like two pizza teams, small autonomous groups that pair business subject matter experts with AI engineers. And increasingly, we are seeing a new role emerge, which is also called the AI translator, where someone has enough technical literacy to speak to the engineers and enough business context to speak to the executives. They sit between the left and the right brain of the organization. And AWS supports this journey through training and certification programs. We have Gen AI builder programs that upskill your developers, and also immersion days where your teams can get hands-on experience with the actual tools that they use in production. Next slide, please. And this is another one that many leaders may often get mistaken. I would say don't spend 2 years heads down building a perfect monolithic data platform before you can touch AI. Instead, build incrementally. Lay the infrastructure as you go and let the services grow organically around use cases and add like streets and neighborhoods as they develop. There's just an analogy because a a cathedral requires a complete blueprint upfront and years of construction before anyone can use it. A city evolves continuously and is usable at every stage and adapts to what people actually need as well at this point. And start with one use case. Build just enough foundation to support it, ship it, and then expand the foundation as you add more use cases. The architecture grows with the demand and not ahead of it. And agentic AI does not need like perfect data at the beginning. It enriches as it goes, and the agent can identify data gaps, fill them, and improve its own context over time. And don't let our data isn't ready be an excuse for inaction. Keep your architecture modular and build in a way that lets you swap components like models, data stores, orchestration layers without rebuilding everything from scratch. And move responsible AI from principles on a poster to something you operationalize in every deployment. So that means having guardrails, testing, monitoring, and also governance baked into your pipeline and not after the fact. AWS supports this through architecture reviews, Bedrock, and also we have Bedrock as a model access layer, and also responsible AI tooling. And part of this foundation is doing an honest readiness evaluation before you scale. Thanks for the next slide. And let's talk about cost governance, because this is where a lot of organizations get burnt as they scale from one successful POC to multiple production workloads. And let's think about this pattern that we see. Without governance, teams spin up AI models and endpoints with no centralized visibility, and no one knows who's spending what. And like, for example, per token costs, which may actually seem tiny in testing, but multiply silently when you go to production volumes. And a model that actually costs $1 a day in development might actually cost 10,000 when in production with real traffic. So you end up with a shadow AI with different teams running different models for different use cases with no way to compare across them. And then you get surprise bills from development and test environments that nobody remembered to shut down. But with governance, it's a different picture. You have a centralized visibility into AI workloads, and then you have like token budgets and alerts per use. You're measuring the cost per business outcome. And because our use case costs like 10,000 a month, but saves you like 100,000 in manual processing, like that's a good investment, but you need the data to prove it. And the key principle here is measure cost per business outcome, like I mentioned before. And that's how you justify continued investment to your CFO and your brand and your board. Next slide, please. So here's like a simple 3-layered framework for implementing cost governance. Layer 1 is visibility, but you cannot govern what you see. You need to tag every AI workload by use case, by team, and by environment. Like, for example, if it's a development or a staging or production. And this gives you like a clear picture of where the money is going and who owns it. On AWS, you can do this with cost allocation tags and Cost Explorer as well. Layer 2, think of guardrails. Once you can see the spending limits, set limits before it runs away. So define budgets per use case and per environment. Set up alerts that fire when you hit like a 50% or a 80% or 100% of your budget. And use service quotas to put hard caps on token consumption, and consider Bedrock provision throughput for like predictable workloads. It gives you a known cost instead of variable per call pricing. And the next layer is the optimization, and this is like an ongoing discipline. Right size your models. Not every task needs the most powerful model, right? Customer frequently asked questions. An FAQ chatbot probably doesn't need the same model as your legal document analyzer. And start with the smallest model that actually meets your accuracy bar, and then you can scale up when you validated that the smaller one isn't sufficient. And critically have the discipline to retire use cases that aren't actually delivering. So think of the rule of thumb as starting small, measure outcomes, and scale what works. This connects directly to the architecture principle we just covered: lay pipe and iterate. And avoid overbuilding. And now let's talk about the operational essential, which is access control. Next slide, please. I wanted to highlight something also that's as important as what we have discussed so far, and which is the AI systems, which actually need a fundamentally different approach to access control than your traditional applications. The first one is we think of agents that act autonomously. In traditional application, a human clicks a button and something happens on their behalf, right? With AI agents, they are out there making API calls, pulling data, and also taking actions. So your security model needs to account for those autonomous behavior, not just the interactive use. The second one is the data flows, which are dynamic. When you're using retrieval augmented generation, which is the RAG, the agent is pulling documents based on the user's query in real time, and it's not working from a fixed predefined set of files. That means traditional static access controls uh, doesn't fully cover you anymore. And the next one is least privilege. It does get a little harder, but an agent might need to touch 10 different systems to complete one task, but that doesn't mean that they should have standing access to all of them all the time. And the next one is identity inheritance. And the agent should only ever access what the person is asking the question that is allowed to access. If a team member with limited permissions asks the agent something, it should see their level of data, not everything in the organization. AWS supports this through IAM rules for scoped access and Bedrock guardrails to define what agents can and cannot do, and also have session based credentials that are temporary by design, and also permission boundaries that act as a ceiling on what an agent can ever access, regardless of what policies are attached. And let me bring everything together. Um, we have Joe, who's going to talk about the full picture of how AWS supports you across this journey. Next slide, please.
So pulling it all together. How does AWS actually help? On the left, you have strategy and design steps 1 through 3. We run through the AI roadmap prioritization engagements and innovation workshops where we sit down with your team, score your use cases, challenge your process assumptions, and come out with a prioritized roadmap. This is usually 2 intensive days working backwards from your business outcomes. On the right, build and validate steps 4 through 6. Your architecture reviews, your production readiness validation, responsible AI governance, making sure that what you build actually works at scale. Fiona covered this, and I want to underscore it. The guardrails and access controls aren't an afterthought that you can bolt on later. They're part of that architecture from day one. If you get that right in the first 90-day cycle, it carries forward to every use case after it. The flywheel. AWS and partners will help you find the use case, will help you validate your architecture. You ship in 90 days. You observe and learn from your mistakes, and you repeat. Each cycle compounds. The first one will take effort, but by the third, you should have a repeatable pattern. All right, so the last thing, to make it concrete, here's your 90-day sprint. Days 1 through 30, you pick your first use case, the one that scored highest on Ripple. Validate your architecture, ship a working version. Days 31 through 60, you turn that first success into a reusable template, the patterns, the guardrails, the agent architecture. Days 61 through 90, you expand. You take your template and you apply it to your next 2 to 3 use cases. You get compounding returns, and each time you do it, it goes faster than the time before. That's how you scale. And since you started with these organic use cases, you then have to find those connectors between them, and that's how you build out your architecture. So to recap, we walk through a 6-step playbook for getting AI from strategy to production. You identify the right use cases with Ripple. You redesign your processes with Break. Put your human at the center. Define your human AI boundaries. Structure your organizational for AI fluency, and build a modular foundation you can iterate on. The through line here is don't just automate old playbooks. You start with that, but then you reimagine them, ship in 90 days, and let each success compound. From here, we'll hand it over to Carlos now to discuss the implementation perspective. If there are any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll take the meta group at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And before we go further into our topic, let me introduce who we are at Applaudo. We are an AI native engineering nearshore partner working at an intersection of AI, cloud, and modern software delivery. Let me show you a quick video of who we are. Pretty cool, right? Now, I want to show you how we bring this to life at Applaudo. Our vision is simple but powerful. We're not just adopting AI, we're building an AI-powered practice that fundamentally transforms how we deliver value. We believe AI should amplify human talent, not replace it, compress idea to output cycles dramatically, and ensure every decision, every tool, every skill aligns to a secure, fast-paced future. This is not a tooling conversation, it's a business transformation conversation. So, what does that look like in practice? At Applaudo, we're building an AI native execution engine across the entire value chain. Think about this. AI is not a layer. AI is embedded into everything: people, processes, platforms. We're targeting outcomes like efficiency across the whole value chain, faster ideation to project cycles, faster production delivery. But there's a key insight. This doesn't happen with tools alone. It happens when you align four pillars: people, process, technology, budget. And when done right, every team becomes a growth engine. Now, let me walk you through how we actually execute this vision. We'll cover three things: how we build AI agents, how we modernize development practices, and how we guide organizations through AI adoption. Let's start with the core of it: AI agents. When we talk about building AI agents, we're not talking about experiments. We're talking about end-to-end systems, systems that understand workflows, make decisions, and execute actions, all tailored to your specific business context. We approach agents in three layers. First, workflow automation, where we replace repetitive processes with intelligent orchestration. Second, conversational agents, natural interactions through voice and text. Third, multi-agent systems, where multiple agents collaborate to solve complex tasks. This is where things get really interesting, because now you're not just automating tasks, you're orchestrating decision-making systems at scale. To enable this, we combine two critical layers: an orchestration layer and an intelligence layer, using technologies like AWS Step Functions, Amazon Bedrock Agents, SageMaker, Lex, and Connect. What matters is not the tool, it's the ability to select the right model for the right use case at the right cost and at the right compliance level. But here's something important. We don't just build AI for clients, we build how we develop software, because you cannot deliver AI transformation externally if you haven't done the transformation internally. There's a myth I want to break here. AI doesn't fix a broken software development lifecycle. In fact, AI rewards teams that already have strong engineering discipline, clear standards, and a consistent innovation practices. This is critical because the real impact comes from system metrics and discipline, not just tools. So where does AI actually help the most? Let's be honest. AI shines in low complexity, high volume tasks like boilerplate code, tests, and standard patterns. In there, you can see gains of 30 to 40%. But as complexity increases in architecture, concurrency, AI becomes more of a junior partner, not the driver. And in legacy heavy systems, it can even slow down teams if it's misused. So here's the key takeaway: the more complex the system, the more intentional and governed your AI usage must be. Here's how we operationalize this in our delivery model. We use a spec-driven development, which means each feature starts from clarity, AI agent-driven development, where developers pairs with AI as copilots, automated QA lifecycle, where testing is fully handled by agents. This removes bottlenecks and allows engineers to focus on what actually matters, and they are at best, solving problems. At this point, you might be thinking, this sounds great, but how do we actually get there? That's where our role as partner comes in. We act as a strategic partner to guide organizations from proof of concept to production to scale. Let me ask you something. Where are you on this journey? Most organizations fall into one of 5 categories: still on-prem, on cloud but overspending, cloud mature but not ready, running experiments with no production impact, or ready to scale. And depending when you are, the starting point is completely different. Our approach is very simple. Meet you where you are, align AI to business outcomes, and build a prioritized roadmap. We focus on data readiness, architecture design, team enablement, because success, it's not just technical, it's organizational. We structure every engagement into 3 stages. First, explore, where we run workshops and identify use cases. Build, where we define the architecture and production-ready design. And scale, where when an AI native cell can deliver real outcomes. And here's the differentiator. We don't leave you with theory, we leave you with production-ready designs and systems. Let me take this real with a case study. A large, fast-moving consumer goods company came to us. They have like 800 plus sales reps. They use manual ordering processes and a massive untapped data potential. We built an AI-powered recommendation engine using market basket analysis and collaborative filtering. We used services like SageMaker and Bedrock from AWS. What was the result? It projected 15 to 25% increase in revenue per star visit. But here's the real lesson. Success didn't came from the model alone or the process. It came from data readiness, process alignment, and change management. That's what turns AI into business impact. Everything you've seen today comes down to one idea. AI is not about experimentation anymore. It's about execution, discipline, and scale. And the organizations that win are the ones that move from proof of concept to production to getting value faster than everyone else. Now, I'll leave you with Michelle to check if there are any questions in the chat.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you also, Fiona and Joe, for sharing practical guidance and real-world perspectives that our audience can apply immediately. I think we received a question. Can the team check, please? Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Well, thank you also, Carlos, for sharing it. The question is, for organizations just starting the AI journey, what's the most common mistake you see in how companies prioritize their first AI use cases on AWS, and how do you recommend avoiding it? Who would like to answer that question?
Sure, I'll take a quick crack
Okay,
at it. So,
great.
so generally, what we see again starts with that ripple is identifying the first use case, right? So, if you use an AI roadmap prioritization session, we walk you through and we look at business impact, we look at complexity, and we look at the resources, like how capable are you of actually completing this? What resources do you need? And actually, again, what are you going to get out of it? So we see a lot of use cases where it's a good idea, but you actually haven't, mapped the financial impact yet. So that's the biggest mistake I think I see is, again, finding that first use case and mapping the financial impact of it.
Great. Thank you very much, Joe. I don't know, Fiona or Carlos, would you like to add something else to that answer?
I think Joe covered it pretty well. And also, I'd like to add that also when teams get excited, we spin across a lot of POCs across different departments, each solving a small problem. But 6 months later, you get like a scatter spend. So we would want to like know how to avoid that by using the Ripple strategy, like Joe mentioned.
Yeah, I do
Okay,
think
great.
the frameworks that Joe and Fiona shared are very important because you need to understand what's your process first and what you want to make out of it and how it will change by using Gen AI or AI-based technologies. I think the biggest problem is not understanding what you're trying to solve and rushing into a solution. Probably you're thinking about building an agent when you need an automated workflow or something different. Not everything that's on trend is actually going to solve your problem. So taking a step back and understanding this is my workflow, this is how it might change, these are the governance layers that I need, and this is the right AI pattern that solves my problem, it's paramount for organizations.
Great. Awesome. Thank you very much, everyone. Um, if you happen to have any other question, feel free, please, to drop it in the chat. And before we wrap up, we'd love to continue, of course, the conversation with you. And we invite you to scan the QR code that you are seeing right now on screen to explore how Applaudo and AWS can help you accelerate your AI and cloud transformation journey. Please take a moment to complete the survey. And a bonus track: just everyone who submits it will be entered into a raffle for Amazon gift cards. So we'll give you a few moments to scan the QR code and submit your response. Okay, so we have another question from Lenin. What is the best way you've found in your experience to monitor token consumption during the first stages of an AI transformation journey?
Did you want to start it? Because I think that's a great question. So the first thing to do is before you start the workload, you can actually model what that token consumption is going to look like, right? So every prompt, basically, every 4 characters or so, you can sort of imagine that as a token. Okay, so you decide what model you're going to use based off the model hierarchy, right? If you don't need a frontier model, you don't use a frontier model, but you figure out your model that's got a cost per token. You figure out how many tokens are going to be in your average prompt, and that gives you a really good like a baseline for estimating that cost. So once you've done that, once you've monitored how much it's going to cost, then you do some testing. You put it in production, see how much it actually costs. And then, like Fiona said, you start adding your guardrails and your budgets and things like cost anomaly detector to make sure that you're not going over those costs. Did that help answer the question?
Yeah, just adding to that, Joe, that's one of the key insights you can take out of proof of concept where you can actually measure token consumption, not only at the input level, but at the output level. And by running a control exercise, you don't run over budget, but you actually figure out, hey, this is how efficient my solution is, and this is the potential cost that I might run. And as Fiona was saying, maybe the cost was running $1 in development, but then you go over $1,000 on production based on volume. So a POC is a very good place to start figuring out how many tokens are you gonna use during an execution.
Thank you, Carlos. I would also like to add that you can tag by use case and not just by team as well. So if you want to know like which business problem is consuming tokens, you can just see not just by which department is spending as well. So you can use those tags, and like Joe mentioned about allocation tags on like day one before you even go to production. So setting budget alerts at low thresholds early. I think these would be like a few good first steps to get started with it.
Thank you all. And well, I thank you to everyone that has completed the survey. And on behalf of Applaudo and AWS, thank you for being part of this conversation. Thank you again, Fiona, Joe, and Carlos, for sharing your knowledge with us. And to everyone that has joined us, thank you for investing in your future of AI within your organizations. We hope today's session has provided practical insights, strategy guidance, and a clearer roadmap for moving your AI initiatives from concept to real business impact. We look forward to seeing you at a future Applaudo event, and have a wonderful day. Thank you again. Have a good one.